Crafty Mama Mur, a podcast for all things crafting, mom life, and Miranda. My name is Miranda, and welcome to my podcast. Today, I'm here with Jonah, or Jonah Explores.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
A little backstory. Jonah and I went to College of St. Benedict, St. John's University together, and I transferred in sophomore year, but you transferred in halfway through freshman year, correct?
Yeah, so I transferred just after Christmas. It would have been my freshman year from the University of Minnesota Duluth.
Right. So we were both were transplants at St. Ben St. John's. We didn't start
Yes,
there. So we
yes.
missed out on freshman orientation.
Thank goodness, some days.
But I actually love the story of how we met in our lower theology class, because I remember seeing you. And how tall are you?
On a good day, I'm 6'5",
Six
give or
five.
take.
So I
Yeah.
remember I just saw how tall you were, and I'm like, who is this guy? And I remember you stopped showing up for class, and I was like, oh, good, another athlete who doesn't come to class. And I just was so pissed off at you and didn't even know you yet. And then
Yeah.
I ran into you. I think it was either in the library or somewhere on campus. And I was like, so you ever going to come to class again? And do you
Yeah.
remember what you said?
I don't definitively, but I'm sure it was some smart remark.
No, you were like, I've actually been out with a concussion.
Oh, that's right. Oh
And I
my
felt
God.
like such a jerk because I was like, damn it. I just walked up to this man, really never even talking to him. And I was like, so you're not going to come to class?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, concussion, real life now. Can't
Right.
remember.
But
Yeah,
then
that's right.
I laughed because I was like, well, do you need like the notes? And we've been doing these worksheets, et cetera. And so do you remember what I did next?
I basically, this is my recollection of the events that we're describing. Basically, you helped me complete the class. Let's be real.
Yeah.
The little sister or nun who is the professor, I think actually taught my own parents at St. John St. Ben's years before that, and she was really tough. And
Yep.
so I just remember you helping me a lot.
Yeah, and I remember vividly because there's some things that get ingrained in there. And I put together a worksheet and I copied all my notes and put all the scans together. And then I put it in a packet. And then at the very
Right.
last page, I think I put like, and if you see a guy that looks like this, like feel free to give him my number or whatever. Like I like
Yeah,
was like, you can
yeah.
help me find guys. And it was so I remember I saw it a few years ago, either in a
Yeah.
file or a picture of it, and I laughed so hard. I'm like, Miranda, you have no chill. And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. That's who you are. That's
yeah.
who you embody today.
But that's how we met, and I really enjoy that. I'm like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't make so many presumptions about people, but I did enjoy that that's how we met. Um, and then from there, we were besties through college. And another favorite memory that I have of you is after Lake Havasu driving home. And it was what, like a 22-hour drive?
20, I think it was 25 almost,
Oh, yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah. It was
recall.
more than 22 hours because I remember I talked the entire drive. And then
Oh
when we
my
hit
goodness.
hour 22, I looked at you and I said, I have nothing left to say. That's,
Yes, I remember really, I mean, it was a great trip back, but I do remember driving a brand new vehicle that wasn't mine through a snowstorm in the middle of Colorado and seeing a sign that said incline for the next like 70 miles.
yeah.
Meanwhile, like Taylor Swift and Miley Cyrus was like on repeat.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am in for an adventure, folks. This,
25 hours of either Taylor Swift or me speaking.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what juniors in college would sign up for that.
It was a great memory, and it is a great memory. I think we had a lot of really good chats, I recall, in that long time stuck in
Yeah,
a little sedan together.
I know. And I
Also,
always, what?
I was gonna say, I also recall driving really fast through like Utah,
Yep.
and I don't know
Do you remember the gas station we stopped at in Utah?
Oh, it's super janky.
It
Yeah,
was
and we were
they
like on less than a bar of gas.
Yeah, it was well because we ran out of gas and we were like, or it said like fill up in the next like 50 miles, and we're like, we'll
Yeah,
be
yeah,
fine. But
yeah,
then we didn't realize there wasn't a gas station for like another 80 miles. And I just remember like pulling into that gas station. I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna make it. But
yeah,
also, I remember in that gas station, they had signs that say no hoods. Like you couldn't wear your hoods in there. It was like
Mhm.
super locked up. I felt like I was in the hills have eyes, honestly. I was like, we need to get
Yeah.
out of here right
Yeah.
now. That
Yeah.
was that was something scary. But yeah, that was a memorable trip back,
Certainly.
to say the
Yeah.
least.
It's hard to
And
believe that's been, I don't even know how many years.
well, yeah, 2016 we went, so that was 8 years
Jeez.
ago.
And, we're getting old.
Yeah,
Just
hold
getting
on, I
old.
gotta go let Ava in quick.
Yeah, do what you gotta do.
uh, Ava's 10 now and she gets so whiny in her old age that she
Mhm.
just sits outside and like barks at me. I'm like, you're fine.
Yeah,
But
she's like a geriatric golden now.
yeah, she's 10 years old. So she's
Oh
in her
man.
70s in dog years now.
Yeah, that's
So,
wild.
but yeah, so since graduating from St. Ben St. John's, you've moved around quite a bit with your wife, Emily.
Yeah.
So, I can't even keep track. Where of all the places you guys have lived so far? And then this is kind of your opportunity to kind of go into like what Jonah Explores is about and what you've
Sure.
been doing.
Sure. Yeah. So Emily and I have been married for, man, 5.5 years, known each other for over 8 at the moment.
5.5 years already?
Yeah, man.
What?
I know. It's crazy. So basically, I mean, this is a rough estimate, but we've moved over 10 times
In
in that time together.
in those 5.5 years, or how long have you guys known each other?
A total of like just over 8. Yeah,
Okay.
like give or take. But yeah, so we basically the inception of the whole idea was Emily had just graduated from SDSU with a teaching degree. I had just left my first career in corporate once I realized that I wasn't a Wolf of Wall Street and I love people dearly and that money's not the driving force behind my purpose or passion or passions rather. So we looked at it as an opportunity of like, why not? Really? I mean, when's the next time you're going to have the opportunity to just do something that you can reflect on decades down the road and be like, that was amazing. It was terrifying, it was scary, but it was amazing. And so at the time, we had looked at Queenstown, New Zealand, Perth, Australia, Banff, in Canada, Jackson Hole in Whitefish / Columbia Falls, Montana, near Glacier National Park. And at the time, this is pre-COVID, uh, the Flathead Valley or Whitefish, Columbia Falls area was the cheapest and the
Mm,
closest, aka the less risky of all decisions, right?
right.
And so we pretty much sold all our belongings, packed up my truck, and started driving. I had never actually been to this part of Montana before. Emily had in her earlier years and like fell in love with the mountains. So naturally, I'm like, let's send it. I
Yeah.
mean, this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we ended up on this little like sweet chalet cabin on the North Fork, which is about 20 miles south of the Canadian border. And the first 3 days we were there, we got over 4 feet of snow.
Fun.
We,
Of course. They just had to give
yeah,
a good welcome to
I
you.
know. We got dumped on with snow. We could see the Western Rockies in Glacier National Park out our front window. There was moose, there was grizzly bears in our yard. Like it was like Minnesota, Montana in the snap of a finger. And we didn't know what we were doing, really. And I think through a lot of that experience, it allowed her and I just to like get to know ourselves better and each other and really grow together in this new and unique space. And since then, we've bounced back and forth from moving closer to town to down to Bozeman, where I completed a post-bac pre-med program as I'm in the midst of a career change.
Woo!
Woo!
And Bozeman is Idaho, right? Or no, that's still Montana?
Bozeman's, yeah, Southwest Montana.
Were you
Um,
ever in Idaho or have you just
no,
bounced
but
around
very
Idaho or
close.
you've just bounced
So
around Montana then?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yep. So Southwest Montana, it's right by like the north entrance of Yellowstone,
Cool.
uh,
Okay.
4 hours north of Jackson or the Tetons. And so yeah, we were in Bozeman for about 18, 20 months while I did my schooling down there. And now we're back up in the Flathead again, just like roaming around and enjoying ourselves in this world. And yeah.
Yeah. So what's the population of the town you live now?
So population of Columbia Falls, I would say is probably under 8,000 people. Um,
And
it's
what's the population of the town you grew up in?
so population of Avon, Minnesota, at least the last time I recall seeing it on a sign was 1,144.
So 8,000 people, you're in the big city now, aren't you?
Oh man, we're in the metropolis of Northwest Montana. I mean, I don't even think there's one building over like 3 stories anywhere. So
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, it's been amazing though. I mean, there's been so many times I think when it's been really uncomfortable and really scary and you don't know what you're doing really, but you're just like putting one foot in front of the other. And I think that's what has made it such an awesome time out here thus far. Yeah.
And for
So
fun, you and Emily seem like you get out for lots of hikes and get to see some of like the prettiest footage. So I want to hear a little bit more about like what, what got you into hiking, what tips you have for people who like want to jump in or like
yeah.
or things you wish you would have known before you started like quote unquote seriously hiking and getting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I got into hiking because Emily loves hiking. And I thought what better way to enjoy time together than to do something that she loves too. And interestingly enough, it's there's we just literally talked about this yesterday as her and I were taking our first hike in the park of the season. It's just like this really unique space that we can both connect on like a whole different level that's really hard to do unless we're in that environment.
Well, I'm sure there's not the best cell service in there, so you can't like scroll TikTok and Instagram.
Literally no phones, no people, just you, the mountains, and the critters.
See, I'm
And
such a firm believer that walking builds good relationships. And I've been saying that
yeah,
for years that I'm like, because when you're on a walk with people, you either have to be engaged with them or you're just walking in silence, but it's not awkward silence because you're there to walk. But it's
yeah,
very hard to like be like disconnected and scrolling on your phone or like doing items around the house or eating,
yeah.
etc. So I feel like you don't get as preoccupied and you're just there. So
Totally.
I love that you guys hike so much and I love the footage every time you guys are together because sometimes I don't know with the angles you post if you're alone or she's there or not. So I always
Yeah,
like
yeah.
seeing when Emily's there
Yeah,
too.
totally. So, yeah, I mean, I got into it really because of her. I just try to keep up most days. But yeah, it's one of those things, especially in this part of the country where there are animals that exist in a lot of places that we like to recreate that can actually be very dangerous. I mean, it's something that if you're coming to visit and you go in the really popular spots of the national parks, you're probably fine. There's a lot of people, but I don't, or Emily typically don't go out to necessarily see people. And so, I mean, it's just like anything. You want to have decent gear. You don't have to like buy it from REI. I mean, they have some great garage sales that we hit up. You can thrift some awesome gear, just like good pair of hiking boots that feel good backpack, water, food. I would highly recommend a Garmin or some sort of satellite communication so that if shit hits the fan, you're not high and dry.
You do
Uh,
have something like that then?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Do you have to pay
yeah.
like a monthly phone
It's yeah,
subscription for it?
you can just go through Garmin through their InReach platform, and based upon the device that you have, you can set it up and activate it per month or a certain duration of time, and it's like anywhere between like $10 and $20 a
Okay.
month. But
But
it's
that's a sense of security you have
oh
that you would
man,
say totally worth it.
priceless. Yeah, I mean that feature alone, I mean, not for our sake, but every year saves people because you can touch one button and be connected with emergency personnel if you really need that. I hope nobody ever does, but
Right. But good peace of mind and like safety. And also,
100%.
this is a total sidebar, but it was only like
Yeah.
a year or so ago. I realized how fast bears are on the
Oh my
ground,
gosh,
plus in
dude.
trees. I have
Oh,
you ever I almost vomited because my brother told me right before we were gonna go hunting. He's like, because I said, "Oh well, I'm fine from the bears. I'm up in the tree, whatnot."
yeah.
And he goes,
Yeah.
"Have you ever seen how fast bears can climb trees?"
Oh,
And I figured it was like a slow pace that some a few 100-pound animal would have. No, it's terrifying. If you're listening to this right now and have never watched a bear climb a tree, I'm sorry, but you just need to go because ignorance is not bliss in this scenario.
yeah.
Like, I couldn't believe how fast bears climb. So that
Oh,
was my
they're
sidebar.
Yeah, there we had a situation, and there's a difference between black bears, grizzly bears. Two
Yeah,
different types of bears. Black bears are typically found most places in North America. They can be black, they can be brown, they can be cinnamon. So you can't just identify a bear based upon its color. A grizzly bear will have distinct features, the hump in the back, the shoveled face. You know when you see one. I mean, grizzlies are like a whole different, literally a whole different animal. We've seen enough and had enough close calls
with
that,
grizzlies.
oh yeah,
Oh no.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, they're beautiful, beautiful animals, but I mean, even in the park, it's estimated there's between 900 to 1,200 bears in general, of which most of those are grizzlies.
That's so many bears. Oh my gosh.
Tons
I
of
thought,
bears. Yeah, and there's a handful that of males that are pushing 800 to 1,000 pounds, which means
Jesus.
when they stand up, they're like over 10, 11 feet.
I'm looking at my ceilings right now, and I think these are 9 foot ceilings. And if
Yeah,
something stood up and was taller than this, I think.
yeah.
So, what's the advice if you run into a grizzly in the wild?
Well, I'm certainly not an expert in that
Well,
regard,
what do
but
you do?
yeah, the kind of the cliche is that if it's a grizzly, play dead if you were ever in that situation, and if it's a black bear, try to fight back.
But then black bears sometimes are brown too.
Yeah.
Cool,
Well,
cool, cool.
I mean, I think like I actually just made a reel about this not long ago on my Instagram, just kind of talking about bear spray, which is one of the most effective tools to combat close bear encounters. It's basically like pepper spray on steroids. And it's really great to understand how to use it properly because if you don't, you're just going to spray yourself and
Yeah.
you're going to really feel that. I've had that happen accidentally. And yeah, so bear spray is a great tool to use. And just like doing things proactively that can limit your chances of close encounters. So, like if you're going to hike early sunrise or sunset, which are obviously the most beautiful times,
Right.
just to be aware, to hike ideally not by yourself with more people, to make not excessive noise, but just like conversation always,
Yeah.
which
So you
kind
don't
of
startle anything.
yeah, which kind of facilitates our earlier point on just like walking and talking.
Hmm.
Yeah, ultimately just being really respectful of how amazing and powerful those animals are. They can cover a tremendous amount of ground just as fast down a mountain as it is up a mountain. So
Okay, so there's no bears
there's
can run downhill or whatever
no, that's
they can
uh,
or they cannot run
they
downhill.
can, yes, they
Okay.
can certainly. They are just as fast up or down an incline. There's another cliche that grizzlies can't climb trees. Emily and I were actually riding about a couple years ago at this point, down going to the sun on bicycles. Like towards sunset, we were trying to get back to our truck, and we had like a sub-adult, so only like probably 400-pound grizzly come out of the ditch, and we kind of spooked it, and it was startled too. We were startled like we were going fast, and it within 2 seconds was about 30 feet up in a tree. And
Jeez.
yeah, so I mean, I love that stuff. It's
Yeah.
amazing, but it's also terrifying at the same time, you
But
know.
I think it's the more you know, and like you said, like be respectful. And,
Yeah,
most of the times you startle them as much as they startle you, even though
totally.
you're like, you've got 5 times the amount of weight on me. But
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I wouldn't want people to stray away seeing the
yeah,
mountains, exploring. I mean, some awesome places simply because of that. If you go into it with a little bit of awareness and understand the basics, odds are you're going to be just fine. So,
yep. So,
yeah.
what is the hardest trail you have done, like the most challenging trail? And what
Yeah.
is your favorite trail? So, you got two
Sure.
questions there. So, the hardest
So,
trail you've ever done, and then your favorite trail you've ever done.
yeah. So the hardest I would say is starting at Logan Pass, which is like the center point of Glacier National Park. It's kind of the near the Continental Divide, and you can get on the Highline Trail, which is basically this trail that sits between 6,000 and 6,500 feet of elevation, and you follow that for 7.5 miles and get a panoramic view of the west side of the park.
Awesome.
At that point, you can then veer off and climb multiple peaks and see some glaciers, one of which is Grinnell Glacier, so Grinnell Glacier Overlook. that's an awesome day. It's about 16, 18 miles. So if you do it in a day and have time, and if you're a little more you're in shape with the mountain elevation stuff, like it's doable, but you need the right equipment. By far my favorite. It's one of the coolest. The views are literally out of this world. The hardest I would say is climbing Swift Current Mountain.
Okay.
It's in this portion of the park where you basically just have to climb straight up, and there's not a lot of shade, and so you're just climbing. Ends up being about 1 vertical mile, so about 5,300 feet of elevation in about five
Wow.
miles. And the cool part about that one is when you get to the top, there's a fire lookout, and there's usually some fire watchers that volunteer and live up there during the summer, and you can just chat with them and basically see both sides for about 30 to 40 miles on a clear day.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I've already told you this, but my cousin Kylie is now going to Montana State
Yeah.
or Bozeman State, right? Is that
Yes.
what the college is called?
It's Montana State University in Bozeman. Yeah.
Okay, Montana State University. So I'm going to be out there in October, hopefully. She has family weekend that weekend, and I'm going to try to time things out. So I
Yeah.
definitely want, how far away is that from you guys?
Presently it's about 5.5 hours south. But there's a possibility that we might end up back in Bozeman, late summer this fall again, just based upon how more career related stuff unfolds. So
Yeah, well, I will keep my fingers crossed that you guys maybe move back up to Bozeman, but otherwise, I definitely will be reaching out to you for some fun trails and things to do around that area because
absolutely.
when she said she was going out to Montana, I was like, that's so sad. But I was like, that's also a great reason to come visit.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think she'll have a ton of fun. It's a great university, great campus, great
And
atmosphere.
do you remember Kylie?
I do, but like her is like a younger person, right?
Yeah, I mean, she's
So,
11 years younger than me because Elena's 10 years younger than me. So they're 18 and 19 now. So
wow.
in 10 years ago when we were in school, they were 8 and 9 years old. So I'd bring them to
Yeah,
like the cafeteria or like some
sure.
things
Sure.
around campus because they lived 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
that's
that's
actually
awesome.
another one of my favorite memories of you when you wanted to watch the Vikings game or something. And I was like, well, I'm at my aunt's house. I watch the Vikings games every Sunday here. And
Yeah.
I asked my aunt Penny, I'm like, is it okay if my buddy comes over? And she's like, yep, that's fine. And I texted you and I said, bring an appetite. Like if you haven't ate yet, don't eat because,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you literally walked in the door and my aunt was like, do you like tater tot hot dish? And was like putting a plate together for you. She's like, we got egg salad Sammy's. What do you want? And it was
Oh
so
yeah.
funny because I was like, you will be fed here. And that is the
Oh
thing
yeah.
about my aunt Penny's house. You will be fed.
Yes, I recall. I don't even remember the game. I just remember leaving feel like I had a food baby. I mean,
Yeah.
I was full of love and food, really. Like
Yeah. And recently, you've been getting into social media a bit. I've been seeing all the reels you've been posting. So, what kind of drives you to put out there, and what do you hope that people take away from your presence on social media, or what's your goal with being on social media?
yeah, I think it's a unique space. I mean, we live in a time where everybody sees the highlight reel, and I'm just as guilty. I mean, I live in a beautiful place right now. Emily and I recreate in an awesome place. But honestly, even before I've shared these reels and this content, I have all these videos and photos on my phone already. And
Right.
so I kind of look at it as, if I can, number one, if I can make somebody smile or laugh, that's awesome. Number two, if I can help educate somebody about doing something they're scared to do and or something about hiking, mountains, exploring, animals, the whole works, like that's a win. And number three, it's just like a cool creative outlet for me. I'm pursuing something else, again, as I've referenced, like professionally, that's pretty strenuous and it's consumed a lot of my time the last few years. And so it's a neat opportunity for me to just like do stuff that I'm already doing and share it with people. And if it hits, great. If it doesn't, like no sweat, I'm gonna do it either way. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of been the rationale behind it. I think there is a little bit involved of like I'm slowly starting to work with some brands and post some more content with their products or things that I actively, again, use regardless. So I've just reached out to a bunch of people whose stuff I've already been using over the years and been like, hey, my name's Jonah. I live in Northwest Montana. I love your stuff. let's work together. And
Right.
it's amazing how often that's actually worked in my favor so far.
Mm-hmm.
Only in like a few months' time with me taking it a little more seriously. And so again, it's a cool opportunity for me. I mean, ultimately, I'm still an entrepreneur at heart, and so I'm gonna try my best to see what happens in that space and enjoy it while I can.
That's one thing I wish I had like 4 more hours in a day to do is reach out to brands because you would be so surprised how many of them will say yes.
Yeah,
I've had 2 deals now with Joann's, which was like my dream collab to work with. And I've
yeah,
had two, one unofficial, one official collab where they like sent me a pitch deck with everything branded. And I was like, this is amazing. But it was because I reached out to them.
yeah,
And it's just crazy. The worst thing they can do is say no or not respond. And
totally.
so if you are like ever wanting, I think that's great though, because if you have brands you already like, and that was one of the first tips I ever got when I wanted to start working with brands, was it was go through all the brands you already know, use, and love and
Yeah,
reach out and share that testimony with them. The one I'm still hoping to get someday is Free People. Like if I get a Free People collab, I will feel like I've made it. Free People or
great.
Anthropology or
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Sometimes I feel a little too old for Urban Outfitters, even though my friends work there. So I like love
yeah.
seeing the stuff, but sometimes I feel a little too old for Urban. But
Yeah. I just want to
I,
pause and give you like an emotional high five for everything you've done with Crafty Mama Mur over the last few years.
yeah,
Like,
thank
I've
you.
been able to see you thrive in this space, to do something you're truly passionate about, to take chances, to take risks. Like in your own unique way, you're killing it. And it's been awesome to be a part of and see from a distance.
Yeah.
So shout out to you
Oh, yeah,
because
thank you. I always think it's funny because, like, obviously, I knew you before I started Crafty Mama Mur.
yeah,
And to me, I'm like, it's just like a weird to connect those dots that like you knew me before and you know me now. And what
yeah,
I hope I pride myself on is that like I am the same person online that I am in person. Like
yeah,
online is what you get. And it was so funny because the other day, one of my VPs at the company I work for, she's down in Texas. And whenever she's in Minnesota, I say, let me know and we'll meet up. And
yeah,
we sat, but she follows me on TikTok. And we sat down to start talking. And I started speaking, and she goes, hold on. It feels like I am watching you talk through the screen. I'm like, yeah, because that's me. And this is still me. Like we're the same person. So it's funny how often it gets brought up that people I work with at my corporate job, they're like, I
yeah,
found you on TikTok or I
yeah,
follow you on Instagram. And I'm like, yeah, it's just me. And it's very
yeah,
funny because it's a weird association. Like they'll be like, yeah, I follow Crafty Mama Mur. I'm like, you follow me. Like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
you and I have struggled with like the whole Hannah Montana effect that sometimes I feel like I'm like Miranda Olson and then I'm Crafty Mama Mur. So I
yeah,
work on trying to make sure that that's the same person. But it has been such a fun journey. And kind of how you said earlier, I was already taking the videos, I was already taking pictures of the projects I was working on. Granted, now content creation has definitely like vamped up, and
yeah.
I have 56,000 photos on my phone.
That's
But
impressive.
yeah, I had 12,000 photos before Meta was born, and now I have
Yeah.
56,000 photos. But I think I've always loved social media. I remember when Instagram came out with like the polls feature and you could vote on things. And I
Hmm.
love that. Like even in college, when I had, you know, 2,000 followers, I was using these things. Like I loved social media and I love the aspects of it. And I really do try to not just have it be a highlight reel. Like I've posted plenty of videos and things of me not doing well, just to be like, I'm a real person too. Give me some
Yeah,
grace, cut me some slack. But I think
totally.
that comes off really well and really genuine and authentic. And that's what I've really enjoyed using this space for.
Yeah, totally agree. I think you are your authentic self in both spaces.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that I try to do. I'm trying to do right now too. I mean, like if people are going to connect, it's naturally going to happen. I'm not going to
Hmm.
force it, and I'm going to have fun, and see what happens. So,
Yeah. So where do you want to take Jonah Explores in the next year? So a year from now, April 2025, where
yeah.
do you hope Jonah Explores to be?
That's a really interesting question because a lot of that I think will be determined through how other areas of my life continue to progress. This may be a kind of a one-off opportunity that I use as a creative outlet, and I might pivot in another direction. But if things were to not change, I would just see it continuing to evolve as a space to connect with like-minded individuals who love the outdoors, who have honest questions that they're too scared to ask most times, and just like a community of people that I naturally have continued to evolve through that enjoy the same things that I do and authentically feel like love and connection recreating outside. And so
Yeah.
that's like my like next year projection, if you will. But a lot of it is up in the air with how other things pan out.
Well, I hope that no matter what happens, it continues to be a creative outlet for you and that you can have it there and it's a good release. Because that's what Crafty Mama Mer has really felt like it's for me, that I don't do it because I feel like I have to do it. It's not like today I was sitting there and I was about to say, yeah, it's my job, but I was like, I don't even think of, it's weird. Like I'm a small business owner,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't feel like a job. Like I'm like I don't know, it's weird to think about because it's like, no, this is just my life and I'm documenting it, or these are the crafts I'm
Yeah.
doing and I'm
Yeah.
documenting it, but it doesn't feel like. So I hope that that's what it can be regardless of where your career path might take you.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And it's
Yeah.
nonetheless like it's so fun to just look back at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just for me and Emily or whoever else, just to look back at like some of the spots we've been,
Right.
some of the things we've done. So it has been a really cool
Well,
opportunity.
keep sharing, keep hiking, keep that bear
Thank
spray
you.
on you, please.
I sure will.
And if you are listening to this and you're not already, make sure you go follow Jonah Explores on social media. I will tag him in the show notes, but show some love for a Minnesota boy who found his way out in Montana. Jonah, thank you again for being on the podcast. It was lovely catching up with you and hearing some tips.
Thank you so much. So appreciate you and your time and everything you're doing in your world.
Well, thank you. So, thank you for listening to Crafty Mama Mer, a podcast for all things crafting, mom life, and Miranda. Find me on any social media as Crafty Mama Mer and follow along for more parts. Bye.
Mama, mama. Mama. Crafty Mama Mar.